as well as author. I'm your host, Kevin,
And I'm your co-host, Brian.
and you're now tuned in to Coda Conversations. Be sure to visit us at codaconvos.com. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. My name's up. Do you guys have last names? I just see it's just Kevin, Brian, and I got my whole name up there.
Yeah, you do.
Are you just
do.
coming as Glenn?
My last name's Miller.
All right.
Yeah, my last name's Russick, Russick.
Now that I knew because Brian's the one that got a hold of me initially. So
yes,
there you go. There you go.
Yeah, thanks we appreciate you coming on tonight.
No problem. It's the glory of LinkedIn, right? I mean, I think that's where we connected.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
LinkedIn's great.
Yeah.
For marketing, for networking.
Yeah, it's a safe space in social media. It's like.
Yeah,
I have yet to see anything political on LinkedIn, and I hope I never do.
Very rare. Yeah, very rarely will you see that.
Yeah, but anyway,
yeah, your man of many talents. I guess we get started with your authoring. You've written one book, and you're writing a couple others. Can you tell us about the book that you've already written?
There it is. Well, the one I've already written, everyone should buy. That's listening. That's number one. No, it's well, look, I've been fortunate. My entire professional career, I've been involved in sports in some capacity, and almost all of it was soccer as a coach, and then broadcaster, and have covered a lot of other sports. But soccer became, something that really I was enamored with. A big part of it was the passion that I saw more so in Europe and South America, the supporters and how people just, you go to a town and, their team is their team. I mean, that's everything, that's leading up to the weekend. That's all they talk about. And then Monday, they either lament the loss or celebrate the victory, or if it was a tie, then they'll complain mostly about draws. Nobody likes a draw.
Yeah, exactly.
But so what happened is I retired from collegiate coaching after doing it a really long time. And I got right into broadcasting, and I suppose the thing that I could present to somebody to try to start broadcasting was I was a trained broadcaster coming out of college. I worked 8 years full time at a local radio station as a sports director, but I started coaching while I was doing that. I was single, I could just got up in the morning, did my radio, then went off and did my coaching, and I eventually wanted to coach more than I wanted to be on the radio. So I did that for a very long time, and then got back on the radio. And I have this show on SiriusXM. It's called The Coaching Academy. And it turns out, as I counted it up one day, I've done over 1,200 interviews over the last 11 years. I know. And so I'm thinking, but these interviews, man, they go off into the, they're just in the abyss. No one, they're played once and it's repeated. And there's an app at SiriusXM, so you can go back and listen. But for the most part, people either don't hear it or they hear it just once. So what I've tried to do is resurrect some of those interviews, some of the better ones, the ones that got feedback, and then put them into 3 volumes. So volume 1 is complete. It was released December the 1st. Volume 2 will be a month before the Men's World Cup. And then volume 3 will be in 2027 before the Women's World Cup. And there'll be special chapters for the World Cup in both those books. But it's really been it's been a cool project. Because I don't know about you guys, but and you've done many interviews yourselves now.
Yeah.
But I went back to, since I've been doing the show since 2016. So I went back and looked at some of these transcripts, and I had forgotten what was in them, and myself, I was like, and I'm reading it, I've gone, wow, that's pretty good, and so, so it was kind of, it was a fun project. It's hard, writing is, an arduous task, and trying to, and then what you end up doing is you just, you're editing and looking at every word. That's not the right word.
Yeah.
So it's, it takes a while. After a while, you just have to say, I'm not reading this anymore. Just send it to the publisher. And
well, I think it's important to have an editor, and it's important for you to just get out whatever's in your head and then hand it off to the editor to let them do their job, rather than self-editing the entire way, which I guess a lot of people probably do that.
Well, what happens is there's so much content in these interviews, so I really have to. That's the biggest part of the editing. I mean, there's a lot of things with the words. And by the way, my wife is an editor and an author and a professor. Oh, wow. So I'm telling you, I remember the first time she read through it, she found over 100, and it was like a grammatical or, a hyphen instead of a semicolon, that kind of thing, which is really important. You want to be consistent with those things. But I had to, it's sort of a Q&A format. I'm kind of bringing these interviews to life again, and I'm trying to make them as exact as they were when I did it on the air. So I have to really find the best parts of those interviews too, so that it's more compelling. Because not every moment, every second of every interview is of interest, I'm sure. So just do the best we can.
So essentially, it's like a best of the best. What made the best interview stand out from the rest, and how did you choose like the juicy moments? Like what made these moments stand out?
Well, I'm going to tell you this, that a lot of the interviews in this book and in the subsequent books are going to be from more so from the pandemic on, because what happened then, first of all, I became interviewing is like, I became a better interviewer. I don't think I was a particularly good interviewer at first. I was just, you're kind of nervous. Most of my interviews were live in the first 4 or 5 years. So I wasn't necessarily nervous, but you're always focused on the next question, and instead of listening and having a conversation, which I think I've developed that pretty well. So because I'm a better interviewer, and then because of COVID, instead of going into the city, New York City, and recording it over a phone line, we didn't even have Zoom then. We weren't utilizing it. I'm now sitting at home, and like with you guys, this is a better conversation than if we were doing it on the phone, because we could see each other.
100%.
So my best interviews are from 2020 on, for the reason that I'm a better interviewer now, and because the show is really well received. So now more people know about the show. More people have heard of it. So if I contact somebody, even someone who's very large in the field, a lot of them have heard of me or heard the show or whatever. And I've coached the game forever too. So I've developed a lot of relationships. But I'm so thankful that I had all that coaching experience, because it really helped prepare me to ask the right questions too. So once I got past the barrier of, just have a conversation, and then I'm looking at people at the same time, I think, the best interviews are from 2020 on. I mean, I've got some before that are good, but I'm just, the more recent ones are better.
So like, what exactly did you do to like progress your skills in interviewing? I know interviewing is actually an art, so there's a lot of nuances that people don't really realize. But when you listen to someone who knows how to interview versus someone who doesn't, you can definitely hear the difference. So how did you progress?
Well, almost every time I bring somebody on, everybody wants the topics ahead of time, because they're nervous. They want to make sure that, which is fine, of course. But I always, here's a couple of this is the most important tip of all, because this is what I did early on. So, and part of it was because I want to be so prepared. I'm over prepared, which is fine, over prepare. But what I would do is I would call the guest the day before, sometimes even the evening before we would do it. And we would end up talking for like 30 or 45 minutes. So what were we doing? We were doing the interview, not on the air. So now we get there the next day, and I open the mic and start talking, and it's like, it's not fresh because we already did this. So don't do the interview before the interview, no matter how much your guest wants to prepare them through an email or text or whatever. And here are the topics we're going to try to cover. But I make it very clear to people that it's just, let's make believe we're just having a coffee, kitchen table, and we're having a chat about the game you love, the game I love. And I'm bringing in people who are, expert in the field, and they've got a lot to offer. And those are the most satisfying moments. And I've gotten a lot of feedback over the years where people have said, I really learned something from that guest. And that, to me, that's like mission accomplished. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. Can you tell us and our listeners how you got into coaching just in general?
By accident. How's that? You always hear these stories about people who, stumble into work. And I definitely stumbled into coaching. I got out of school. I went to the University of Georgia. I'm a bulldog. Dogs lost a big game the other night. So So, and I was a broadcast journalism communications major, and I had secured a job right out of school in New Jersey, where I grew up, which was great. And then I went back to my old junior high school because on Tuesday and Thursday nights they were playing indoor soccer, and I was never a great player. I didn't go to college to play soccer. In fact, the college I went to didn't offer intercollegiate soccer. I was there to do the broadcast thing. And so I'm just playing and having a great time. And one of the local town councilmen came up to me after a few weeks and said, "Man, my son needs a coach for his club team." And I just said, "Pete, I've never coached. He goes, "No, but I hear you talking about the game. You know what's going on." I said, "Well, if that's your, if that's your interview process, I'll help." So I went and coached his son's team for a little bit. And so then his daughter, was set to play in the expansion, the first year of the high school program at the school I went to high school, and it was a girls soccer program. And he told me, "You got to apply for that job." I said, "Pete, I don't have no training in coaching." He goes, "Oh, I saw you work with the boys. You're great," and all that. So anyway, one thing led to another, and I got that job.
Wow.
And it kind of. And then I started taking it seriously because I was like, I don't want to come in here. I don't know what I'm doing, as far as organizationally managing, all out of that. And I was young, I was like, all I want to do is win. So everything was like, all right, if I'm going to do this job, we're winning, man. I don't care how it goes, I don't, win at all costs. That was all. But
yeah, you really wanted to be prepared. It sounds like.
Yeah. So I started getting my badges, and so I've got my U.S. soccer coaching badges. And then after a while, I said, boy, I want to try the college game, because I was talking to a lot of college coaches about my players.
Okay.
And, who were looking at different universities. So then I got into the college scene, hard work, and did that for about 25 years. And then it was over. I was at a point where I wasn't enjoying it as much anymore. And, I had never done anything in my life that I hadn't enjoyed it professionally. So I said, all right, I got to figure something out here. So broadcasting was next. But let me just tell you, I did not have a plan. It kind of worked out nicely for me.
It's worked out. Awesome.
So, yeah, me personally, I'm a huge fan of the NFL. And I know for a fact that coaching, aside from the front office, is probably the most important aspect of success on the field. So, like, with you being a coach, what exactly did you do to really make sure that your team was set up for success?
Well, I'm going to give you an example of what one of the people I interviewed that's in the book, what she did. Emma Hayes. I don't know if you know that name, but she is the U.S. women's national team coach. And she coached collegiately at Iona, which is in New York. And that's where I first met her. And this is a long time ago. Then she went to England and had incredible success with Chelsea, and now is the U.S. women's national team coach. One of the intriguing things she told me, I thought, during the interview, is in soccer, coaching is starting to become more specialized. One of my chapters in the book is called The Specialist, because with that in mind, Emma said, I'm going to visit a lot of NFL coaches during what was her off season, because she wanted to see how they manipulated that massive staff that the NFL has, like every player has a coach. So she just wanted to see how it operated, how the head coach intermingled with that group and led that group. And that just gives you an idea. And I hope I'm going to say something, because doing this show, I have learned so much about the game, and I've been coaching up until 2 years ago on the club level. So I became a better coach along the way. But I wish, I suppose we say this about a lot of things. I wish I knew then what I know now, back when I started in high school and I got my first college jobs, and even at Rutgers, which was a huge job, because just that kind of thinking, I didn't go out of the box like that as often. But I will say this,
that's
Kevin,
the thing about hindsight, it's like, you could, it's easy to say, oh, back when I was 15, I should have done this, and then back when I was 18, I should have joined this school. You don't know. You're just in the moment, like, okay, this sort of feels good, so let me go with that.
Yeah. Well, if you're doing the best you can, I think that's such a massive part about it. But I think what I did well with my teams, Kevin, to go back and actually answer your question, is I got to know the kids. Well, once I got past this win at all costs, hey, I'm here to win. So whatever we're going to do, I started to understand that individuals all have different kinds of things going on in their life. Maybe something happened that morning. Was it a math exam that they failed or had difficult time, or they got a math test tomorrow and they have to study. So I got into a relationship with players where they could tell me how they're feeling. And they would always be treated the same, but I could at least have that in the back of my mind, what's going on with the individual that day. And I think when players know you care about what's going on, they will perform not just for you, but for the team. And, I think I did a good job of making sure the individuals bought into the team, because I despise individual awards in my sport anyway. I don't, whether it's coach of the year, player of the year, how about, it's coach of the year, right? All these different people, when you coach, it's like there's a massive amount of people who are contributing to what you're doing, plus the players have to execute. And then individual awards, well, in soccer, it's usually the forward or the one who scores the goals that's getting all the accolades. But how did they score the goals? Somebody had to get them the ball. So it's such a
exactly.
I've never been a big fan. It's part of the game. It's part of the promotion of the game. It's part of the promotion of your teams. So I always understood it, but I just I didn't like, and still don't like, individual awards. You know what they used to do in college? We would go to the Big East or whatever conference we were in. We'd go to the tournament, like the Final Four, which we got into quite often, and they would have a big banquet, like the night before the games were to start, and they would announce the award winners. So here I am at a table with my team, and people aren't winning awards, or are, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're starting to think about that instead of the game, because they're kids.
All right, sure.
Oh, how come she got the, best player, and what about me?
What about me? What about me?
I had it once happen to a goalkeeper who was the top goalkeeper in the conference, not even close, and she didn't get the award. And she was so hurt by it, it impacted her performance the next day. She wasn't a jerk about it. She was just destroyed. It was like, wow, that, because the coaches vote on it. It's like, wow, the coaches didn't think I was the best. I said, listen, man, I don't know who voted for whom, but so those kinds of things. So caring about the individual is and you hear about that in coaching now, whether it's the NFL, NBA, WNBA, MLS, whatever it is. You can see it's really been something in education for coaches, that you can't take anything for granted that way. And you know what? It's really, really hard work to get to know each player individually. It's really, really hard work. And that's how you develop a culture. And the coaches that aren't willing to put in the work, they will not succeed. Not going to happen. Not in this day and age. Not in this day and age. Kids have changed. So you have to be, and young pros have changed. So you have to cater to them.
Yeah. Well, what? Oh, go ahead, Kev.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, you're dealing with like so many different personalities from other coaches, players on down. Like, how are you able to get all of the masses of people to buy into the singular concept of, obviously you want to win, but also, like you mentioned, to avoid being overly competitive and eating each other up, like by focusing on the individual accolades?
Well, one of the harder things to develop, and I predominantly coached in the women's game, and I will safely say coaching women is different than coaching men. And here's a perfect example. Guys will go at it in training and kick the crap out of each other, and then they'll go out and have a pint afterwards and have a good old time. In the women's game, if somebody comes up and clobbers you, one of the girls clobbers another one, they won't talk for 2 weeks. Now, but that sort of sensitivity is why I always did enjoy coaching the women, because they're catering to the feelings, but it's beyond. So what I would have to do, and this would be in almost any kind of situation, but before the season started, I would set the guidelines down that, look, You have to kill each other in practice. And by killing, it's like not like chopping somebody down from behind, nothing to
Yeah.
try to purposely hurt somebody, but you have to go at it in training. You can't, if you don't, it doesn't translate into the match. All of a sudden you're going to be able to turn it on. So, and that competition also breeds the competitive nature that it takes to play on the weekend. Now I'm selecting players. Well, if you're not going to put it in, then, but if somebody's going 70% and the other person's going 100%, the 70% person doesn't get anything out of it or as much as they can out of it. And the 100% person doesn't either, because you're not going 100% at them. So if you paint the picture clearly, and clarity in this book that I've written, I've had a lot of people now ask me, like, what's the overarching theme, or is there a common thing that you've really gleaned from all this? And clarity in purpose is like, it's mentioned all over the place. Whether if we're talking tactics, if we're talking culture, if we're talking leadership, if we're talking the specialists, it's this clarity is really part of almost everyone's message, and it makes sense. But again, it takes work to really have a clear message that each individual can understand within the team concept. And it's also clarity for your staff, right? What are their roles? Clarity with the athletic trainer, clarity with the strength and conditioning coach. So this clarity is, and you can see it really clearly in some of the people in the book. Mikey Varish is in the book. In an expansion team, San Diego in MLS, they won the Western Conference. And just looking at the clarity that he used with all these different, like Kevin, like you said, so many players are from different cultures. It's a brand new team. They all met like for the first time 6 weeks before the first game of the season. So to bring it all together, clarity was a critical word for him.
One question I would have is, how did it look when you got into broadcasting? Was it an easy transition? Was that really difficult? What did that look like for you?
Well, easy. I don't think anything's easy if you haven't done it for a while, but I broadcasted full time for many years, and I was trained as a broadcaster, coached all these years over, I ended up coaching for over 45 years. But as far as between one broadcasting gig and then starting up after I retired from Rutgers in 2014, it was pretty seamless. I got thrown in to do color commentary on the Big Ten Network for men's and women's college games right away. And then almost immediately, I got this gig with the New York City Football Club. They were an expansion MLS team. And since the first kick, I've been doing their radio commentary. I'm the lead commentator on their radio side.
Oh, wow.
And what has really helped that is my coaching. So I really understand the game as a coach. So when I'm looking down on the field, I have a pretty, I can more easily describe it maybe than some. I don't know. I'm just thinking. And then I have my analyst is a guy named Matty Lawrence, who played over 650 games in England. He's excellent. Wow. Played for some top clubs, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Millwall. And he's wonderful to work with. So we've been working closely together for 9 years. So we're like, we're an excellent team, I think. But we both see the game clearly. So for me, it was not that difficult, but it was fun. The initial challenge was I retired from my position in August, right before preseason, and that was in order to make sure my assistant, who had been with me for 14 years, just got the job where they couldn't go out and search or anything like that. So they made a good move, and he's still, Mike O'Neill, his name is, and he's still the coach. He's gotten them to 2 Final Fours, so he's done a wonderful job. But my first broadcast assignment after retiring was providing the color commentary for a Rutgers women's soccer match on Big Ten Network. So it was a little odd. I had coached all these players, and now I'm kind of, seeing moments where I might be a little critical, but it was, I got over that pretty quickly.
Well, I'll say this much, that it provides a very unique experience, a unique perspective that, you have both of these things going on. You're doing the commentating, you've done the coaching. You're going to have different insights than your average commentator, I would imagine.
No, I do agree, but there's a lot of good people out there. But I think whenever I've applied for a position or anything, I do tend to say, I offer the uniqueness of professional coach and professional broadcaster, because I can safely say I'm both. So it does, if you can articulate what you're seeing, and in radio in particular, and I love radio. I mean, it's, I have so much fun with it. And I don't know how, I don't think you guys are old enough to remember. I'm a big New York Jets fan, unfortunately, Kevin. And
same here.
Think of the suffering I've had there. I hear people talk about, the Cub fans. I don't want to hear about from anybody. No one, no supporters have suffered more than New York Jet fans in any sport. I don't want to hear it. Don't bring up any other teams, please, because it's been, and of course we've backed it up with another dismal year. So there you go. But when I first started as a kid, and I was a big Jets fan and Yankees fan, there was no soccer in my neighborhood. So I didn't pick up soccer till like 13 or 14 years old, because there was none in my town.
Okay.
So I was Yankees number one, Jets were right there, Knicks and Rangers. So I just, it was all New York. But the Jets, but what happened is the home games back then, I don't know if you're aware of this, but the home games, up until, I don't know what year it started changing, but were blacked out, with the theory being they wouldn't fill up the stadium if they televised the game. So they were including playoff games. Like we're so, I mean, nowadays, there's so much soccer on TV, but imagine an NFL playoff game not being on the network. Well,
wow.
It was not on against, and this is the game I'm going to refer to, and this is a true story, is the Jets playing the Oakland Raiders for the 1968 AFL championship to get to the Super Bowl. This Super Bowl would only be like the fourth Super Bowl. It had just, kind of, and the Green Bay Packers, and, were winning the first couple. But Channel 4 in New York was blacked out. But Philadelphia, which is about 75 miles down the road, they have Channel 3, which is the same NBC network, but Channel 3. I could pick up Channel 3 if I got up on my roof with my black and white TV and those antennas.
Yeah.
Well, it was a brutal day, cold and windy, but I was on the roof of my house watching the AFL championship game on Channel 3 on my black and white television. So this gives you an idea of how much the Jets mean to me and how I have labored for many, many years with them. But
commitment. That's
radio.
That's commitment.
My point here, though, is that radio was critical. Like, the only way you could follow your teams on home games, and that included the Yankees, all of them, was by listening on the radio. So I became enamored. I fell in love with the radio. I love the radio. So I knew what I was going to do when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. Seriously, because it was like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I wanted to play pro sports, play baseball, but I was, never good enough.
Sure.
So I went to school for broadcasting, and my goal was always, I wanted to be the play-by-play guy for the Yankees. Well, that probably won't happen. But the home field for the New York City Football Club, the soccer team, is Yankee Stadium. So I have done broadcasting at Yankee Stadium. So it was just a different sport.
Interesting.
So clarity, that was like one of the underlying themes that you mentioned. And I find even in corporate America, clarity is extremely important. Like some of the companies I've worked at, I could tell there's a huge difference between when there's a clear goal, clear mission versus when, hey guys, just kind of freestyle it, do what you want, but kind of get it done. Like if there's clarity, there's a lot more organization. But how do you personally avoid making clarity turn into micromanaging and to where, everybody feels like, okay, they know what they have to do, but they don't have any freedom to get it done.
There's a couple of things there. And one of the things, if you, I would love if you guys got the book, but it's okay if you don't. But Kevin, I think if you're involved in that side, the feedback I'm getting for the book is rather interesting. I've gotten very little, hey, that's great soccer information feedback. What the information I've gotten back, leadership, culture, management. And
Yeah.
there's so much of that. And what people are saying is that, and I didn't write it with this intent. To me, it's a soccer book, but I understand where people are coming from, is that they've learned so much from listening to everybody's management style, how they develop culture within their programs, how they develop leaders within their programs. I do some crossover sports too. There's overlaps. Rugby is mentioned quite often because that's a very culture-oriented sport. So I've got a couple of guests who, including one who wrote, it's called Legacy, and he was embedded with the All Blacks, the New Zealand national team, which over the years, you could say in all sports, they're one of the most successful sports teams in the history of sport. And it's really based on their culture. So it's a really neat experience to read this book. And then the ability to interview James Kerr, who is the author of that. So that's part of it. What would you, and your question, Kevin? Oh, try not to make it so it's
like too micromanaging.
Micromanage.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
I know the way I did that with my assistants is that I did give them freedom based on their strengths. So my top assistant, who ended up becoming the head coach, I let him conduct. He was the lead trainer. So our training sessions, our exercises that we run in training, he was the lead trainer because that's where he excelled. I had another person that was my lead recruiter because that's where they excelled. They had that kind of personality. So while you're managing it and having defined roles and almost some rules within those roles, mostly it was just, we would have feedback and meet as a staff after every training session. So if things needed to be broken down a little bit more, if I didn't like something or I thought maybe this could be better, but I also sought their feedback about me. So this is where you're now, you're getting people to accept the fact that, wow, I've got a leader here who's listening. And then you do the same thing with the players. And I learned this from another book, Dean Smith, the legendary University of North Carolina basketball coach. There was a chapter in his book on how he empowered his players. And it was just really simple. He goes, I didn't let them tell me what to do in a practice session. That's not what I was going to do. But what I did do is when we were going on the road, I would give them a list of restaurants and I would let the captains pick where we were going to eat. I would give them maybe a couple of hotel choices that they'd see. One has a pool, whatever it might be, as long as it had a weight room, because that's what Dean Smith needed. But so he gave them the power to choose certain things within the program that were very impactful because he wanted the players to be comfortable. So I took that and ran with it. And sure enough, I let the players pick the uniforms. I let them. So there were a lot of different things I would let them pick from. And also how we would kind of run the spring, because the spring season in college is not, it's really not full time. You're not playing your matches at count then. You're playing sort of exhibition. You can't train as much. It's just NCAA rules. Although that rule is actually it looks like the men's side is going to change, but we won't get into that unless you want to, but that's a whole nother show.
Right.
So because the spring is a time where you could do a lot with your team, especially give your captains and develop leaders, and which came from another person in my book, Anson Dorrance, who's a legendary figure, also at the University of North Carolina, ironically enough. The great quote from Dean Smith, because he had a great basketball program for years. Somebody said, called it a basketball school. And he said, we're not a basketball school. We're a women's soccer school, because Anson Dorrance won 22 national championships, which is still a record in NCAA sports. But he is a genius in terms of developing leaders. So I learned from him. And in this book, during that, so how cool was that? I learned from him as a coach. And then when I got my radio show, I said, Anson, you got to come on and talk about this so everybody else can learn from you. And so I put some excerpts into the book from him too. So that's that. So clarity doesn't have to be like regimented. Not at all. Not at all.
So I know in terms of running your program, there's non-negotiables, things that everybody needs to do. Let's just say you have this star player and they're utterly amazing, but they want to do things their way. So like, how do you deal with a situation where you have these core principles that you want the whole team to abide by, but then you also have this star player who may be going against the grain and trying to do their own thing? Like, how do you deal with that kind of situation?
Well, I coached one of the biggest stars in the game on the women's side, Carly Lloyd, who was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Well, actually, yeah, last year. There's another kid I know that's getting inducted this year. Carly's a 2-time World Player of the Year. So she's one. I'll point to an example with her in a minute. But I had a Canadian national team player named Janelle Foligno. We had a rule, you can't be late for practice. And if you're going to be, you got to communicate. And back, it was at a time where you could communicate. So she didn't communicate and she was late for practice. And I sent her home because that was the rule. And the one thing I'll say, and I've read many accounts, Phil Jackson, the legendary basketball coach, wrote a book called Sacred Hoops. That's another one you should read, but every coach should read that too, because he coached Michael Jordan and got Jordan to buy into the team concept as this individual. But what he did with his teams is he made it clear that no one was above the team. And there are examples. Michael Jordan, he never had a problem with. Michael Jordan was the first to training, the last to leave, the hardest working. I mean, that's who Michael Jordan was.
Yeah.
But he had a couple other guys that, needed to be disciplined, and they were big guys like a Scottie Pippen. So Janelle learned her lesson. She apologized. She was angry with me. And I said, well, listen, what am I supposed to do? You got to put yourself in my shoes here. So if I let you go, that gives everybody freedom to do whatever the hell they want the rest of the year. And we can't have that because there has to be a certain amount of discipline. And if you had communicated to me, maybe we could have worked something out. Maybe I wouldn't send you home and I would just have you sit for practice, but you got to go home. Yeah. And I'll see you tomorrow, and that's that. And when you come back tomorrow, you better be, with a smile on your face, and
you better be on time.
I don't want to, you better be on time. Well, that's the great line. If you're on time, you're late. I mean, I learned Tom Coughlin, when he was with the New York Giants, that's what I heard him say. So I've listened to coaches from all sports. I've read all the books. Bill Walsh, great leadership book. The Mike Krzyzewski, Pat Riley. I mean, these guys are genius. Bill Parcells, just they are such leaders. And I'm not the only coach that has crossed over and read all these books, because a lot of us do. But I've learned a lot from people outside of the soccer realm, that's for sure.
I think there could be a big difference between being a great individual contributor and being like a great leader, like a coach. Can you speak to a little bit about that from what you know? It's like, Michael Jordan, for example, one of the best basketball players of all time, but that didn't necessarily translate over into the coaching game. And some of these players who they weren't necessarily great on the court, on the field, but they made excellent coaches. So like, why do you think that is?
And it goes the other way too. Like some great players try to coach and it doesn't work out because the players are coaching can't reach their level when they were playing, and that frustrates them, which I think I'm definitely one of those. When I got the job at Rutgers, I was the only Division I women's coach who hadn't played in college. The only one.
Oh, wow.
And to me, I've always studied the games, athletics. Like I can, if I sat with you, look, I don't follow the NFL that closely anymore, Kevin, but if I sat with you and watched a game, I'm confident that I would be calling things before they happened, or when they happened, I'd be able to tell you what happened before there's a replay or anything else, because I've always watched the game analytically, whatever game it is. It was baseball at first, then it was football, basketball, which I coached a little bit, hockey. I've seen less of, but it has many parallels to soccer. Just it's on the ice and there's fewer players and things like that. But the movements, how they defend, how they attack in transition. There was a professional coach with the New Jersey Devils who used. I remember reading an article. I'm forgetting his name now. That he used soccer exercises for his hockey practice. So, wow, that's cool. Yeah,
Nice.
that's really cool. So, I think you have to re-ask what you. Sometimes I go off on a tangent. Sorry, I forgot what you asked.
Yeah,
Where was
it
it?
escaped me as well.
Yeah, that's okay. But it's I really enjoyed talking about the crossover because I think we get stuck sometimes on this sport, that sport, that sport.
Right.
But what we learn along the way is that there are a lot of parallels, and it's not going to always be in the X's and O's, obviously. Um, I remember that because I was talking about watching a football game with you. It's like, so I've always, as someone who hasn't played at a high level, I played the game, but I never played at a high level, not close to a high level. I've always seen the game really well, and I think I've seen all the sports that I've observed or played very well. I just see it. I'm not the only one, but I'm thinking that's part of it. And then the other part of it is I respect the players. For instance, I respect the players who don't get a chance to play in a game, because I was one of those. I was not a frontline player at any point in my soccer career. I was always a reserve. So I understood what they were going through. And I think that's important. I think a star player that coaches has how can they understand what somebody sitting on the bench is going through? They can't. It's not possible. They can. They can't. They never will. They can try as hard as they want. They're just not going to. Now that's where the assistant coaches might come in and help out a little bit too. So I think somebody who hasn't played at a high level or been the star player, they can sometimes and maybe more often than not be the best coaches because they appreciate things a lot more. Because it was harder for me to get on the field than it was for Messi, for instance.
If you were to go back in time and meet yourself at, say, 18, what would you tell yourself that, hey, watch out for X or make sure you do Y? What would that look like for you?
Well, what to avoid? Well, I'd have to say the $5 pitchers on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights at college probably it may have slowed down my progress a little bit, but that's really not true to my that's what we did in college. What can I say? But I got good grades, and I ended up having a great tape where I got a job right out of college. So I'm trying at 18. I think it's more to 18-year-olds don't listen very much.
No.
They have a difficult time listening.
Yeah.
And when I go back to the whole interview thing, so I didn't listen to my parents. I probably didn't listen to anybody. I had a few teachers along the way that I really respected that got to me. A couple in high school, and like 2 or 3 on the university level. And though I always listened to them, and it's not like I didn't respect my parents. It's just they're your parents. You don't listen to your parents. So now later on I did, but when you're 18, 17.
You don't want to hear it. You do not want to hear it.
But it would behoove the 18-year-olds to soak in some of what their parents have to offer. And the one thing I've worked with parents for years as a youth coach. I've been a youth coach since 1981, only stopping like 2 years ago. I was always coaching on the youth level in addition to college. And so oftentimes met with the parents, and then it became easier when I became a parent. I have 2 children and who both played. I maybe didn't understand their emotions before I had kids as well, but it was just trying to let their kids, be kids and learn the game from me, not from them, and just come and enjoy the experience and understand. Because the parents, and I'm sure you've read about all these things on the youth, but not just soccer, just all over. I mean, the percentage of kids at 12 and 13 years old that drop out of sports is at its highest point ever right now as we speak. And oftentimes, if those that have researched it and really done studies on it, the parents are probably the number one cause, putting out too much pressure on their kids to, play one sport instead of multiple and things like that. And so it's kind of it's unfortunate that's that's what happens. But so for me, I could have listened better, but I also think the young adults who have children and then get them involved in athletics, um, it's really important to to let the kids go a little bit.
Yeah.
So I know like a lot of these principles of success, they're kind of, they translate across industries. So you transitioning from coaching to broadcasting and radio, like what are some of the key lessons that you took along with you that helped you in that arena?
Well, I was so happy to retire. I can tell because it was the job was driving me crazy. And college athletics now is even crazier. I mean, my wife says to me, every now and then, I'm so glad you're not coaching anymore with the transfer portal and the NIL, and on the women's collegiate side, high level Division I, it's impactful. Those two things are having an impact too, not to the level of football and basketball, but still. It's just the transfer portal in particular. And if you haven't seen the John Calipari 6.5-minute rant on social media, he's a guy, I like Calipari. I always, and he's been a great basketball coach on the collegiate level. But he just, the transfer thing going on now where some kids play for 4 schools over 4 years. I mean, how can that be? How can you permit that? So check that rant out. I think because it paints the picture of reality in that it's gotten out of hand. The transfer portal has it's really ruined things. Much less so than NIL. NIL is a chance for the athletes to earn some money. I think everybody thinks, you go to college, even if you're on a scholarship, you go to college, you don't have any spending money because you're spending your whole time on academics and your sport.
Right. Where's the money coming from?
You want to go to the movies, you have a scholarship and you're getting maybe a free education, but you don't have any money to go to the movies. So I never had a problem with that, treating them now as professionals and paying them a salary and all that. I'm not up to speed on it, honestly, enough to know where it stands at every level right now, but the transfer portal, get rid of it. And adjust it and listen to Calipari, and that's exactly the way I think it should happen. And the NIL I think is okay, but it's gotten out of hand now because of this the NCAA owing all $2.5 billion, and it's being distributed to schools who opt in, and it's a mess. So I'm trying to get to Kevin's question, but I was so happy to get out of the game because it was just really, really hard at that moment for me, that it was just such a sense of relief. And I'm probably not the best person to ask because although I know what I wanted to do, I did not have a plan, which is when you're trying to support a family. Like my wife's full-time professor at Rutgers University. It was fine. I mean, she works, but I'm also contributing quite a bit to that whole thing. And I stepped into some things really quickly, and I just dove right in. And the thing that helped me a lot was my coaching experience, but also I listen more closely now to broadcasters. And what I actually do, and I could show you, I call it in my notes on my Mac, it's just called commentary. And if I hear a phrase or a word that I think, wow, that's a great way to describe that, I'll quickly write it down.
Oh, wow.
And before every broadcast I do, I write down, I have a pad and I write down like 5 or 6 things that I would like to include in the broadcast. Sometimes it's a word, like I get a word of the day in one of these dictionary services, and I love it, and sometimes I keep it, and that I also have a section on words, so I keep those. So I have phrases for my soccer commentary, and then I have words that maybe I could incorporate. So I try, and that keeps me fresh too. But that's what I did right away. I studied the broadcasters really intently and got a good feel for their rhythm and things like that. So I think when you change, you just you got to dive into it, and don't, put the ego just don't have an ego about these things, have a personality.
That's the tough part, I think, for a lot of these younger players,
Sure.
They feel like, I want to be like Mike. I want to be number one, but the fact of the matter is they're not out there shooting free throws in the rain. They're not staying an hour after practice, and they want to be great. But if you really want to be great, you have to give it your all, and you have to be completely passionate about it.
Yeah, passion is a massive part of it. Where you want to, first of all, I always wanted my players to understand the history of the game. Why they're currently playing is because of this player 15 years ago. And you talk about being grateful. And if you look at the introduction to my book, no, I guess it's it's my final. I call it the final whistle, where I kind of recap and then have my acknowledgments. And the acknowledgments was really important to me because I had read a column. There's a woman, Melissa Kirsch, who is a columnist for the New York Times, and she really writes great stuff. I don't read all of it, but I read this one where she talked about being grateful, but she talked about being grateful in an extended manner, where take it all the way back, and it's really true. Where you always hear about saying, well, if I turned left here instead of right, my life would have changed, but it's true. And when I went back, and that guy I told you about, Pete Hilgendorf, the town councilman, who told me I should apply for the soccer position at the high school, and I said he was nuts. I did, and I got the job. He's in the acknowledgments, because what if I didn't heed that? What if I didn't do that? I might not have had a coaching career. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have, my children. Imagine how things change, like that. So I think it was such a great exercise to just go back and just trace, well, who am I grateful to next for this continuing on and on. So I think a lot of us, a lot of days we wake up and we say, we're grateful for whatever aspects going on in our life. But I had never thought about taking it way back, and then charting it, step by step. So that was a pretty cool process. So that's what I would say. You just go back and, somewhere along the line it worked.
Now, let me ask kind of a random question here. You mentioned the New York Jets. You grew up watching them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Joe Willie Namath. I remember when he signed for $400,000, and people almost, that was like the, out of Alabama. I didn't really know who he was because I don't remember following college football at the time.
Yeah.
But I was a Jets fan even before him. There was who was the quarterback before him? Mike Taliaferro, I think, was the quarterback before him. I wish I still had it, because I know I don't, because I looked for it, unless it's just deep into some, recess of my basement. I had little 8mm, like a projector, and 8mm highlights of the 1962 and 3 seasons of the Jets. And, I was a fan, and Yankees, same thing. So when they got Joe Willie, I love Joe Willie Namath. And from that point on, I was like, really dedicated to the, because here they had this great guy, this great quarterback, and he was a gunslinger, and it went on from there. But I have one of my prized possessions is I have the entire Super Bowl broadcast from 1969, Jets against the Colts. Jets were 15-point underdogs, and it's Kirk Gowdy and Al DeRogatis were the broadcasters, and it's all the old commercials. I mean, it's the actual broadcast. And because I ended up working with somebody at Rutgers whose mother was a secretary for somebody with the New York Jets, and she got a hold of it for me. And it's like, so it's a cherished possession. And every now and then, what was funny about that, and it's kind of, it goes back to like that ego thing too, I think. Everybody wants to put on a show, and what's funny about watching this game, every now and then I'll just put on some of it, is that like Matt Snell scored a touchdown, and it turned out to be like one of the game-winning plays. He just got up. He didn't like spike the ball. He just got up and walked back to the sideline. People were glad handing him. They're getting sacks on the quarterback. They just get up and go back into the huddle. There's no, there's no histrionics and all this, which I don't like, because it's putting the spotlight on you. And again, that takes away from team. And I understand why it's permitted now, but boy, I didn't let my players do any of that crap. You can celebrate a goal and do it, and do it in a vociferous way. Your teammates come and, go into the corner. I mean, I like that kind of celebration. But when you make it all about you, take a selfie and, that you got out of the goalpost and who did that? One of those receivers. I forget his name, but I think the Bengals receiver.
And what do you think about someone like Testaverde?
Oh, Vinny? I liked Vinny. Yeah,
I liked him too.
Because he was just well, first of all, he's a Long Island guy, so he's a New Yorker, so that was cool. And he, but he just he took everything in stride, and again, he was a true pro in my mind,
Yeah,
and he could throw the ball, so he was good. He was good. He just unfortunately had some injuries that hampered him, and. Yeah, you're going to throw some things at me about the Jets. I'm not going to remember. I remember Ken O'Brien to Wesley Walker. Those were great moments. I was at all those games. I was dating a season ticket holder at the time, so I was going to all those games during the Kenny O'Brien era. And those, they were pretty good teams, but they just they could never take the step.
Yeah. So you mentioned like the one yes that really changed your life, but to kind of close us out, was there any no's that you believe kind of changed the trajectory of your life? Like something you said no to that was really beneficial in hindsight?
Well, I suppose it's, one thing, I could have gone to another university and somebody within the journalism department really wanted me to go there. And I chose not to. So I was actually I wasn't recruited per se, but it was like, that was the person who was in the journalism program and at the radio station. I had met all these people, and they were really, and constant calls, and back then it was just calls. There was that was it. It wasn't maybe, and sending a letter through the mail, and I got a couple of those, but I ended up going to University of Georgia because I just had a better feel about it. So that was tough, because to be, and I've had a number of recruits say no to me, so I know how it feels on the other end. So that, again, that's going way back, but if I don't go to the University of Georgia, I don't know what happens.
Yeah.
And instead go to Florida State. So I don't know what happens. So I enjoy my life and my family, and so it's gone all right. And I love my work. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
Imagine calling to call a live sporting event, which is what I always wanted to do. That was my get out of college goal. Call a live event and do it on the professional level, and MLS is soaring. It's a very popular league.
Yeah.
It's global in its reach, and we when I do a radio broadcast, it's on the internet. It's something called Tune In. It's an app, and we have people listening from all over the world. I get the analytics and everywhere. Brazil, England, France. Somalia. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Some of the places, and you wonder, and it's just like somebody's got a love for radio, so that's good with me. That's good with me.
Yeah, because some people say, "Oh, radio's dead," but not really. It's still, to me, it's still going strong.
Well, I do respect the people that are really effective on the radio, because you are indeed painting a picture, because I've got to bring it to life, right? And we do have people that watch the games and listen to us, which I like. So even though they can see it, we're still bringing certain things to life because we're embedded with the club and know them so well. So I'm a big radio fan. I think it's I'm trying to remember. There's an old historian named Alistair Cook, and I love his quote. I'll put it up every now and then. He goes, it goes something like this. He goes, I like radio better than TV. And then he pauses and said, because the pictures are better. And I love that, because I agree 100% with him on that. And it's an art form, and I grew up with it. Marv Albert, you guys know Marv Albert?
Yeah.
He did the Knicks and Rangers on the radio. He was 28 years old. He did both of them at the same time. So it could be a Knicks game. The next night's a Rangers game. And I'm up in my room, with the empty basket, and if it's a Knicks game, and my rolled up sock, and I'm making believe I'm a little kid at that point.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to Marv Albert, and he was pretty inspirational too. He was unbelievable at painting the picture, and it's like I've had those experiences, and I'm very thankful that I was able to get back into radio, because I never saw it coming. I never saw coaching coming in the first place, and then once I was in it for so long, I never saw radio coming back. So
yeah,
it's been pretty cool for me.
Well, hey, man, awesome. Amazing conversation. We're at the top of the hour. Before we get out of here, did you want to leave our audience with any closing thoughts? And where can we find you at, and where can we purchase your book at?
The book is on Amazon. It's right there. Put It On Frame, and which in soccer, it's like some people that aren't involved in the game. What's that? That's why I had to put down here soccer within the subtitle. Yeah. Put It On Frame means put it on goal. You can't score the goal unless it's on the frame. So Put It On Frame is kind of a coaching phrase that we'll sometimes use to our players that are having a little bit of difficulty there. But it is on Amazon. The first 4 weeks it was out, it was number one on the new releases for soccer coaching, which I'm very proud of. And there's a big convention coming up in Philadelphia in the middle of January. It's the largest coaches convention in the world. So I'll be there, as I am every year, and moderating some panels, and then also have my book. And I'm on SiriusXM FC. SiriusXM is a satellite radio. It's a subscription service. I know a lot of people have it. There's a soccer channel called FC. Channel 157. I do a show on there every week called The Coaching Academy, and where those interviews came from to put into the book. And then soon I'll be in California for preseason with the New York City Football Club at the Coachella Invitational.
Wow!
Right ahead of Indio, California. Beautiful that time of year. Near Palm Springs, and boy, Palm Springs. I kept it. I have my weather app, and I keep places where I go. I keep it on there. I don't go to Indio in the summer. It was like 115 degrees every day. I can't believe it. But in February, it's beautiful. So
Southern California, man, it gets hot.
Yeah. So it's so nice. So you can, if you tune in, you can tune into the New York City games on the radio if you like to. So doing all that. So I appreciate you guys, having me on to talk a little soccer, a little bit about the book and what's going on. And I've seen, I look back to see some of the guests you had on, and I wasn't sure quite how I fit in, but it's nice, it's nice that you brought me along. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You shared some absolutely amazing insights. We'll have to have you back and dive, more deeper into your coaching strategies and just wisdom in general.
New books, all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's more books coming out, guys. So. Yeah. Well, thanks again, guys.
Thank you for joining us, and we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. We'll catch y'all next